5:15, even though one of our school board candidates has not arrived yet, but she will surely come in the next 10, 15 minutes while I do the introduction here. My name is Jan Seiler, and I'm the co-coordinator of the League. And my other coordinator, where did she go? I usually like, oh, there she is. Deb Knippel is my counterpart. We welcome you to this forum for the April 3rd election cycle. It's our last forum, sort of breathing a sigh of relief. Brief introduction to the League of Women Voters. League was formed in 1920 after the 19th Amendment gave women the right to vote. So in 2 years, or a year and a half, we will be 100 years old. The League's mission is to encourage citizens to be informed and active participants in the governmental process and to empower citizens to shape better communities. League is a nonpartisan but political organization. This means we do not support any candidate or political party, but we strive to be a source of information about candidates and the issues facing our communities. We also work to influence public policy through education and advocacy, so we do take positions once we have studied issues. League membership is open to any U.S. citizen, male or female, despite the name. We do have male members, over 16 years of age, and automatically includes membership at the state and national organization, which connects members to a wide variety of issues at the state and national levels. We do have membership cards here at the table in the front. They look like this. If you're inspired to join tonight, you can do so right there by filling out the card. And we also, I want to thank, we have a videotaper here again for the city of Stevens Point, and that is Sarah Thoreau. Is that right, Sarah? Did I get that French word right? Excellent. So we want to thank her for coming and videotaping the forum. And I've got little slips like this at the table here, and I've got some in my hand, which tell you the times that these tapes will be broadcast. You can watch them on Community TV, channel 984, or you can go to the website anytime you feel like it and watch it online at stevenspoint.com. And there's also a city YouTube channel, and I think that, do you go to, I suppose, YouTube and then look under Stevens Point, look for stevenspoint.com. The dates for the broadcasts, Friday, March 23rd at 8 o'clock will be the first broadcast. Then Saturday, March 24th at 1:30 p.m. and 9 p.m., 2 times. And then Monday, March 26th at 6:30 p.m. So those dates are given on these slips. Feel free to pick them up as you leave. Got yard signs here. If you're not a League member, they're $10. See them on the piano right over there. If you are a League member, everyone's entitled to one for no charge. Okay, our program tonight is divided into 2 sections. First, we have the forum for school board candidates scheduled from 5:30 to 6:30, followed from 6:40 to 7:45 by the forum for our 2 candidates for the county executive position. Lynn Markham will be our moderator for the school board candidates, followed by Trish Baker, who will modify for the forum for county execs. So I'm going to turn the program over to Lynn Markham right now. Thank you.
Guess what? You get a little free time. Christine says since we said we would start at 5:30, we'll wait till 5:30 to actually start asking questions. Do you want me to read the introduction at this point?
Okay, sure.
Okay.
Save a little time.
All right. Hello and welcome to this forum for the Stevens Point Public School District School Board candidates. My name is Lynn Markham. I am a member of the League of Women Voters of the Stevens Point area and I am happy to be the moderator for this forum. The Stevens Point Area Public School District includes 13 schools, and the 2017-2018 annual budget is $101,646,659. School boards members are paid $3,780 per year. The school board is composed of 9 members that serve 3-year terms. For the April 3rd election, there are 4 candidates running for 3 open seats. Voters can vote for up to 3 candidates. The candidates in alphabetical order are Meg Erler, Alex Kokanowski, Judy Rano, and Mike Wade. For this forum, we currently have 1 candidate present. 2 said they would make it tonight, and those are Meg Erler and Mike Wade. Judy Rano and Alex Kokanowski responded to league requests to participate in this forum, but could not appear tonight because they are working. In order to provide the most time to hear from the candidates and to provide a fair and equal opportunity to answer questions important to this community, we have established and reviewed the format, time, and terms for this forum for the candidates. Each candidate will have 2 minutes for their opening statement and 2 minutes to respond to each question. The order of speaking, if we have more than 1 candidate here, will be rotated for each question. I will repeat the question as requested. Each candidate will also have 2 minutes for their closing statement. The timers are located in front of the candidate table. A green card indicates when their time starts, a yellow card indicates 30 seconds remain, and a red card means that time has expired. Candidates may finish their sentence, then please stop, and the next candidate may begin their response. Candidates are asked to keep their remarks germane to the questions and fair to the participants. The moderator reserves the right to interrupt to ensure that these ground rules are observed. Candidates will respond first to questions submitted by the league and then questions from the audience. If you want to submit questions to the candidates, please motion to one of the ushers for index cards and pencils. I think we're going to have an usher on each side here. The league reserves, they're waving their cards in the back. The league reserves the right to review and screen questions for relevance and avoid duplication. After the forum, you are invited to meet with the candidates as well. Okay, so now we have a couple of candidates. No worries. Okay, so we have Meg Erler and Mike Wade, and I have the good old 1-2, and we'll have them choose. Let you choose, Mike, since you're here first. You got the one, so you will go first on the first opening statement. Thank you. Okay. So the order will be Mike Wade for the first one, followed by Meg Erler. Okay, we will now begin with a 2-minute opening statement from each candidate. We'll begin with Mike and then go to Meg. Mike?
All right, well, good evening, everyone, and Meg, I'm so glad that you came here. It was getting a little bit lonely up at the front of the room, but good evening, everyone. And first, I just want to thank the League of Women Voters for holding the forum. Very important to hear from candidates about their positions and their experience, and very important for the voters to hear that so they have an idea of how to cast a vote come April. So thank you for what you do. My name is Mike Wade, and I am relatively new to the school board. I was appointed to the school board last June. There was a vacancy on the board, and I applied and went through an interview process and was selected. I had no real previous experience with the school board other than I served on a school board committee for a few months prior to that. School board has 4 committees, and 3 of them they allow citizens to serve on. So it was my good fortune to serve on the Business Services Committee, which gave me just maybe a little bit of experience about what service on the board would be like. I am relatively new to Stevens Point. My family and I moved up here 4.5 years ago from Texas. So if you're wondering where the accent is from, it's a little bit Texas. I came to Wisconsin for a job. I work as the president and CEO of Central Wisconsin Electric Cooperative. We're an electric utility. We're based out at Rothschild, but I reside here in Stevens Point. So I make that commute through beautiful rural Wisconsin every day. And my wife and I have 2 children, a daughter that is a student at SPASH, and I have a son that graduated from SPASH not long after we moved up here, and he is a student at UW-Madison studying engineering. Or at least I think he's a student there. He never calls his parents, but the last text I got, that's where he's at.
Okay. Meg?
So I'm Meg Erler. Like Mike, I was appointed to the school board. I was appointed 3.5 years ago. I served half a year in an appointment position, and then I was elected. I have served as the school board president for the last 3 years. I came onto the board at a time where there was quite a bit of turmoil on the board. I believe that I have been a moderating factor. I believe I have been substantive in moving things forward for our district in a planned, efficient, and business-like fashion. And it is my intention to continue to do that. I heartily want to endorse Mike Wade as a board member. He has been incredibly helpful to our board with his background. I believe we right now have a board that is functioning at an incredibly high level. We are moving upwards and onwards, and I guess I'm going to go out and say I really encourage you to vote for the 3 members of the board who are currently on the board, Mike Wade, Judy Ranow, and myself. I think we have a number of substantive things facing our district over the next several years, but we have a number of substantive things right now that we are heavily involved in, and the continuity of this board, I think, would be incredibly helpful for students, staff, school, and our community. Thank you.
Thank you. The first question, we'll have Meg respond first. It's almost like you knew the questions, even though you didn't. What are the 3 major challenges facing the Stevens Point School District? So we'll have Meg go first, and then Mike.
So the 3 major challenges are fiscal, financial funding. We have been, since 1993, under state caps in terms of our funding. We are a low revenue district. We actually right now are going to benefit from the governor, what the governor just passed yesterday, which will allow us actually as a district to have a little bit more money, about $400,000+. We are spending a little over $9,300 per student in our district. The average in our state is somewhere up in the high 10s to low 11,000. We were frozen at that cap in 1993. We are in a minority of districts. We have not gone to referendum post-Act 10, and we have serious financial concerns and constraints. The second major issue is attraction and retention of staff, in particular teachers. I mean, we as a state, we as a nation are facing an incredible shortage of teachers, and attracting them, retaining them, supporting them with professional development, supporting them in the classroom is incredibly important. The third major issue for our district is the increase in mental health issues with our students. AODA issues that our students and frankly their families are facing, and the challenges that that presents to both our students and our staff. We need to focus on that, and we as a district are committed to doing what we can to address those issues that, that we're facing on a daily basis in our schools.
Well, I won't disagree with anything that Meg just outlined. Obviously, the financial aspect of it, which drives a lot of the challenges that the district faces, that is our greatest concern. I am new to the board and fairly new to the school budget process, and it is a lot to take in just a short 9 months. So I agree with Meg. Fiscally, bringing in enough revenue per student so that we can properly operate our schools, that is the greatest concern. You know, our mission statement is that we're going to prepare every student to be successful. How do you do that if you don't have the resources in place to let that happen? Had a conversation before our meeting tonight. We're very pleased to have Assembly Representative Katrina Shankland here with us tonight. And one of the things that we have been talking about, she came to our school board this week to talk particular about safety and the safety of our children. What is the state doing to give us adequate resources to keep our children safe? And there, if you saw the news today, the governor has come out with a plan, $100 million to assist schools with safety. I think that's really important. It'll be interesting to see what the Assembly and the State Senate do as far as taking that plan and their own ideas and crafting that into legislature, into law that we can all, that schools can benefit from. So safety is a big concern. Frankly, facilities at our schools is a huge concern, and that kind of ties with the funding. We've been a very conservative school district through the years, and we've made good use of the facilities that we have, but there comes a time where they need to be, heating and cooling systems needed to be upgraded, phone systems, all the technology that we use, so infrastructure is very important.
Thank you. For the next question, we'll start with Mike and then go to Meg. This question is, some state legislators say that reducing teacher certification requirements would help reduce teacher shortages. How do you view the move to reduce the certification requirements and why?
Well, you know, coming from a different state to Wisconsin, this is an issue that is probably really a national issue. Not just affecting Wisconsin. My job out at Rosholt, I see a lot of what goes on in the more rural school districts, and I know a lot of them do have a challenge of finding qualified teachers who are licensed and certified to teach in the classroom. So I think there possibly could be some opportunities there, but what I worry about, and I think what we all worry about, is teaching is, it's not an easy job. It's not a profession that I chose, but I know it's a difficult profession. My wife was a teacher back in Texas. Her parents retired from teaching, and so I am concerned that individuals would get in a classroom with students, our children and our grandchildren in their room, and not be adequately prepared. And I think that is part of what a proper state certification program does. It not only teaches our college students subject matter, it teaches them the art and the science of teaching and being in front of a classroom, and it gives them the adequate experience necessary because, you know, for anybody that's a teacher in the room or a former teacher, when class starts and you got 20, 30 kids staring at you, you got to be prepared, and so it does concern me. I think in more rural schools, they have a greater concern. Where they just cannot find individuals to come to those communities and teach.
So I would, I guess, underline everything that Mike has said. I'm on a statewide committee with the Wisconsin Association of School Boards. And this is an issue that we as a committee have discussed, and we have representation across the state. And the bottom line reality is Milwaukee is struggling to hire teachers. I mean, they are. And our rural, small school districts are struggling to hire teachers, to find teachers, and they are. We are blessed in this community. We have an incredible university. We have an incredible relationship with them. We have a strong school district. We have a lot of opportunities, and so we have been able to continue to attract the best of the best. I believe from a state perspective, there has to be that recognition of how to support school districts that are struggling to get instructors in front of their students. But I also totally agree with Mike that, that teaching is not for the faint of heart. And classroom management, classroom techniques are incredibly important. So the idea that someone who understands the substance of a subject, because they may have a college degree in that, or they may have technical or business training in that, the idea that that would automatically make them able to be a good teacher, I think is totally erroneous. And so if we are looking to create optional pipelines, we have got to ensure that there is significant professional development, support, training, and frankly, certification to make sure that the people that are in our classrooms understand what it is to teach students and to be collaborative with their coworkers.
Thank you. I'd like to remind the audience members that we're looking for your questions as well. We have people who will hand you cards and pencils if you need something to write it on, and then they will also collect your cards and take them to the table if you need. Okay, for the next question, we'll start with Meg. School safety is a major issue in our country. What measures do you support to assure student and staff safety in our public schools?
So, at our last board meeting, we learned from our superintendent that we had two significant weaknesses within our district with respect to, frankly, school safety. One is an outdated surveillance camera system in our schools. The other is an antiquated phone system. Then Florida happened. Then we had an incident at one of our local schools, and we realized firsthand how inadequate our camera system was. I have since then been in contact with Representative Shanklin, Senator Teston, the governor's office, Senator Fitzgerald's office, Senator Olson's office, to strongly encourage the state to return to legislation, I believe it was left us in 2009, 2010, which allowed local districts to exceed the revenue cap to fund school safety concerns. The phone system, the surveillance cameras, the IT to connect it all is a $5 million price tag. We're not talking about a small amount of money. It's not something that we as a low revenue district have the ability to fund, frankly. We also, as I mentioned in a previous question answer, is we're dealing with additional mental health issues with our students. We need additional professional development for staff. We need additional counseling support in our schools. So I just drafted a letter today. The board approved it this week to ask the governor to consider lifting the cap. He's proposing right now $100 million in grants for schools, which is a wonderful opportunity, but it's not certain who gets the grant, There's way more than $100 million in our state needed for safety and security in our schools. We as districts need to have the local flexibility to allow our taxpayers to spend the money that we need to spend to make our students, our staff, and our schools secure.
You know, when you look at and what has happened in schools recently, it's horrific. It's horrific, the events that have taken place. It's mind-boggling, and you really don't have to go too far back in history in the last 10 or 15 years, and you see events just like that that have taken place all across the country. And I heard somewhere recently, in light of all this, that it's hard to pass enough laws to control evil. And I really thought about that. I thought, gosh, what do you do about those horrific events, and how do you keep them from happening in our school district? And one thing that I always go back to that I feel is so important for our school districts and all school districts is having local control, making sure that local citizens can get behind safety measures in that community and make safety happen for our children. I've been a parent for a long time, and I've done this a lot of times. I get my kids up in the morning, and we get dressed, and I drop them off at school, and I don't see them. I hope they don't drive too many teachers crazy, and then we pick them up at the end of the day. But every time a parent does that, they're placing their trust of their child in the hands of the school district, and the school district has a responsibility to keep those children safe throughout that day. And I think local control is part of the safety initiative, having a close working relationship with our local law enforcement and working in tandem, which is what I've seen since I've been on the school board, is so critical. It's all the infrastructure changes that we're talking about, making sure that our cameras and our safety systems and our phone systems, and it's not only the metal and the glass, it's all those other support systems are in place to protect our children.
Thank you. Our first audience question also is related to safety. Mike will answer first, and then Meg. The question is, do you think it's a good idea to arm our teachers to protect the students?
I always felt like I was a pretty good student back in the day when I was going to school, but there were some of the teachers, I don't know if I would have wanted them to have a weapon based on the way I acted sometimes. I was driving to work the other morning and listening to National Public Radio, and there was an interview with the superintendent from Texas. And I wasn't familiar with the school district. It was sounded like a fairly rural school district in kind of the northern part of Texas. And that was a school district that had armed teachers, and they had concealed. The way the superintendent described it, nobody knew exactly. I'm sure the administration knew, but it was not common knowledge which teachers carried a weapon. And I thought it was a very interesting interview. And one of the things that he said that I thought was very important is he could not make that happen unless if he didn't have the local support of the community, it wouldn't happen. And again, I think that kind of ties back to local control in our school districts because we want to hear what the citizens have to say about arming our teachers. Again, I've never been a teacher. My wife was a teacher. My in-laws were teachers. I know teachers have more than they can do to shake a stick at. They are very busy in their classrooms. When I have interacted as part of being on the school board, when I have interacted with teachers, they're always focused on the kids. We always attend, we're allowed as school board members to attend kind of an opening day for each school when the teachers and their children, or parents and their children come into the classrooms and meet teachers for the first time. And you see it when you go to that. Teachers are focused on the students. I don't know what kind of world that would be like to have them armed. I don't know if that is something people would be comfortable with. We would have to have a lot of discussion about that.
I agree with Mike. I mean, my personal sense is no. I mean, bottom line, I think our teachers in crisis are there for our kids. I mean, they're helping to support, helping to figure out how to keep those kids safe and keep those kids emotionally secure. I'm also a little bit cynical, frankly. I read Time magazine. There was an article last week in there, and it talked about one of the major pushes for arming of teachers is the NRA. Because right now they're struggling financially. I mean, under the Trump administration, they're not selling as many guns. That's the bottom line reality. And this is a revenue source. And so for me, again, being cynical, when there's something proposed, I try to figure out what's the reason behind it. And I think it's money. I think it's trying to find a source of revenue. And I don't know that I really strongly want to support our teachers being armed, all of the professional training, et cetera, that the NRA would be looking to sell to create that situation in our schools. My daughter's a teacher in New York. She actually is an ESL teacher in a high school in the South Bronx. I mean, they've got, their kids got to go through 2 different metal detectors even to get in their building. And it's not a safe situation. And my daughter says, there's no way she'd want to be armed. There's no way she'd want to create that relationship within her classroom, within her school, within the connection that she's trying to make with her students. And I guess I defer to her judgment. I think there's so many better ways for us to keep our schools safe and secure, like phones, like surveillance cameras, like mental health training and mental health support for our students. I just question the motivation behind this push to arm teachers.
Thank you. For the next question, we'll have Meg go first. From your perspective as a school board member, what challenges does the Wisconsin Parental Choice Program pose for our district?
Well, bluntly, it's financial. I mean, the state changed the program within the last couple of years. The funds used to come out of general revenue with the state. Over the last couple of years, it's come directly from us. So the bottom line is, in the Parental Choice Program, we are told how many students are in our community are in the Parental Choice Program every year. We're required to levy those dollars to support those students. We're required to take them out of that levy and hand over to our private schools. And I'm not saying anything negative about our private schools, because I believe that they're a wonderful resource for our community, but we are required to do that, give them dollars for students that have never been in our schools. So we're still educating the same number of students, but we're supporting the vast majority of kids within the school choice program have always been in the private schools. And dollar for dollar, they're taking resources away from our district. Last year, I think it was approximately $350,000 to $60,000. This past year, it's over $500,000 of our local tax levy are going to fund choice students, and those are dollars that are directly going away from our public schools. So at a time when, again, we're a low revenue district and we don't have the money. So I don't believe that our state should be funding more than one education system, and we are more and more funding private schools and not our public schools.
This is an issue that I will be honest with you, before I got on the school board, I probably wouldn't have given it a second thought. I really didn't know how big of a problem or how big of an issue it was, how often it happens. In the short time that I've been on the board, it is an issue that we discuss. As Meg has said, it's considerably more money than I really thought was leaving our school district. What I think is a little bit unfair is that when we receive our tax statements, it's not really clear in our statement, where this money is going. We know that we're being taxed a certain amount by the school district. What I would advocate and what has been discussed is having a separate line on the tax statement so that at least we're all aware. We all know how much money is leaving our school district and going to a private school somewhere.
Thank you. The next question, with Mike going first, is do you foresee asking our community to vote on a referendum? If so, how soon and for what purpose?
I think the simple answer to this is yes. As far as the timing, I don't know if I can say that. I don't know if the administration is really prepared or the school board prepared to really outline that. But I think the answer is yes. I think there has to be a lot more education in the community about why the school needs the additional dollars. That's without a doubt. I think more public input into the process needs to be done so that we're clear on what the community wants. But without a doubt, the school has, and hats off to the administration, particularly our business services department. They have made do with what they've had to work with for a long time. When you look at, the school has undergone, or the school district has undergone studies to look at our facilities. The school district is a lot of buildings. It's a lot of elementaries, it's a lot of junior highs and high schools and alternative schools and charter schools, and it's got a lot of facilities. And when you look at the price tag on upgrading those, and I'm talking about really, in some case, basic infrastructure upgrades, things that probably would have been done over time if we had had the money those years to do those projects. So I think the time has come, if our children are going to be successful, we're going to have to bring in additional revenue.
Excuse me, is it proper during this discussion to ask a question?
It's not. To write it down and give it to the table, yes.
So our district has been working with a consultant for about the last year and a half. We've done an extensive facilities study. Administration has been reviewing that over the last 6 to 9 months. So we're talking our facilities. We also understand the importance of enhancing certain of our academic learning opportunities. We have schools dating back a lot of years. We have all sorts of exciting opportunities for education today, and we need to enhance our academic settings to support those. We also, which I know nobody likes to talk about, but we also need to be able to properly support our staff. And I got on the board at a time where we had not settled a contract post-Act 10. And over the last 2 years, we've settled 7 of them. We've imposed most of them. The average increase has been less than 1%, probably less than 0.75%. So our staff has really bore the brunt of the fiscal limitations that we have, that the state has created for us. we need to go to referendum. We are in a minority of districts that has not. We just heard at the board meeting on Monday night that administration has provided a timeline for us to have the ability to go to referendum this November. But we have to do our work. We have to bring the information out to the community. We have to provide them with what the needs are. We have to get input back from the community as to whether the community wants to support what it is we're proposing. If the community's behind us, we are looking to go to referendum in November. If the community's not behind us, we've got to take the plans back, we've got to take a relook at what we're doing, and then we have to take a look at going in April. No, we'd prefer to go in November. We'll have the largest number of taxpayers out there providing us with votes and providing us with support. But at the end of the day, if the community isn't there in support of what we're proposing, then we've got to go back and do our homework and make sure when we come in front of you that you will support it. Really quick, the governor, this low revenue deal that he just passed, if a district fails in a referendum, then we are frozen for 3 years in terms of the revenue that's coming to our district. So we cannot afford to have a referendum in our district that does not pass. And we as a board will not do that, but we need to go to referendum. We need additional resources for our schools.
Thank you. Our next question, Meg will go first. It is well known that living in poverty is the best predictor of poor academic success. How can our community support schools in their efforts to help students from low-income households be more successful?
That's a tough one. I think we as a community have to, on a broad range, support our families. There are a number of us in our currently who are involved in the Born Learning Initiative that United Way is involved with right now, which is reaching out to support families and provide them with guidance, help, support those families that most need that support. There's so much research out there right now about the incredible importance of the first 3 years of life for a child. That's before they ever even reach our schools. The importance of supporting families and supporting kids so that from prenatal to the time they enter our schools, they are having enrichment, they are having support, they are having security. And that all happens before they come into our schools. So to the extent that we can support families through, we're all supporting them with our taxes. To the extent we can support them through the incredible charitable organizations that we have in this community, especially United Way, to be there to step up, to the extent that we can support Portage County Human Services and the incredible efforts that they are making day by day for these families. I mean, they're across this community. I think everyone sitting in this room knows of families that may be struggling and may need that additional support, whether it's a phone call, whether it's a bag of groceries, whether it's a ride somewhere. I mean, we've got to step up and support these families. Once they get into our schools, our teachers are incredible, our staff are incredible in supporting them, but we've got to be there with these families from the beginning. The families that struggle the most in our county are the ones who stay with us. I mean, they're born here, they live here generationally, and we have to be there to support them.
Well, I agree with everything that Meg has said. I will admit, in the short time that I've been on the board, I've seen programs and seen firsthand some of the programs available through the school for all students, but in particular those that are low income. When you look at some of our meal programs that we have after school, What a great advantage or a great thing to have for students who may not get all the nutrition that they need and they deserve. The technology that the school uses, putting laptops in the hands of all students, all children, no matter what their walks of life are, because we don't want them to get behind on the technology that we all use and that society uses, and that they'll have to use beyond school. It is nice to see in a school district such a important pre-K program that is so robust and growing, bringing 4K kids and 5-year-old kids into the district and begin that learning process early. So no matter where they are, where their parents are economically, they can have that educational opportunity as well. So even though I've been on the board for a short time, it's been good to see the school board and the administration work together, not just on all of the school programs, but making sure all of our citizens have a fair shot at education.
Thank you. The next question, which we'll ask Mike to respond to first, is regarding school safety and mental health. What are the district's specific needs for addressing mental health issues? And how can the school staff encourage students to communicate when potentially dangerous people, whether it's a student or other, might be a threat?
Having served on the school board for such a short time, one of the things I've learned about the mental health issue, and this has been discussed in the school board recently, is if you look at the district as a whole, the district has social workers and they have mental health professionals that work on staff. One of the things that has become clear is how hard it is and how difficult it is to fill those positions, to have people that are qualified and certified in those positions to come work in the school. And the administration has been working on innovative ways to go into our buildings using maybe some professionals other than social workers or mental health professionals, teachers and former teachers, to work in that role of working with students and finding those that are going to fall through a gap. Maybe it's just a short-term problem, maybe it's a long-term issue, and getting them the assistance they need. And it's all spectrums of assistance. Sometimes it may be just some counseling that needs to be done. There are other areas that may need to be addressed with that particular student. So from what I have seen, the school is working on the mental health issue with the students. As far as getting them to communicate, isn't that so important? I mean, if in all of these horrific events that you've heard about, in a lot of cases, there were people that had an idea that it was going to happen. They heard something, they felt like something was going to happen, but they just didn't come forward. Think about what goes on in our schools and how often a child knows about it in advance, and encouraging them to speak up to the administration or to an adult about what's going to happen. It's extremely important.
So there's the focus on the students. There's the need, and we are very blessed as a district. We have counseling support in our schools, limited, but we're growing the program. So we actually have the ability for students who are struggling. We have counselors in every single one of our schools on a limited basis weekly to be able to provide for support for students. We need broad socio-emotional learning, which our district is looking to help implement with the additional 20 minutes that we approved last year to add into our at least elementary school day. But it's the ability to focus on meeting that student, as Mike said, Our district mission is preparing each student to be successful, and it's meeting each student and supporting them in those needs, whether it's a mental health issue the child is dealing with, or a family is dealing with, an AODA issue that a child is dealing with or their family is dealing with. There's also the huge part of professional development for staff, and it's not just teachers. It's making sure that all of our staff have grounding and understanding and education in how to support kids, in how to recognize where there may be a situation developing and have the tools and the understanding of how to de-escalate versus escalate that situation, whether it be on our buses, in our lunchrooms, on our playgrounds, the custodian. We need to do that. The third thing is every single one of us in this room, I believe, remembers that educator or that school member in our lives that reached out to us and created that special link. And that's what our staff does every single day. And to me, that's the best way to get kids to share, is to create that emotional connection with an adult who shows them that they care about them and they're seeing them for who they are and they want to support them for who they are. So our staff is doing it every day in creating those connections. To the extent we can support them in additional tools and additional personnel to help with that, that's what we need to do.
All right. Our next question, asking Meg to go first, is do you know which private schools in our district participate in the voucher program?
I believe the voucher program right now are our local Catholic schools. And again, I think our local Catholic schools are an incredible resource to this community. I think from an economic standpoint, from a not one-size-fits-all standpoint, that we are blessed to have options for education in our community. I just don't believe that we should be funding private education with public dollars. I have some background with our local Catholic schools, and I have to admit that I have some concerns about their ability to sustain themselves financially in the long run. Because what the legislature, what the state giveth, they can taketh away. And we've seen that in our public schools. And I do believe there's going to come a time where the legislature swings and all of these public dollars that have been going to support private education go away, and our private schools may go away then. Because at this point in time, they are putting more and more of their eggs in the basket of public funding. And when it dries up, there isn't any money there. So again, I think it's a bad deal all around. I think public education should be funded publicly. I think private education should be funded privately. I think it's just the reality, and I am incredibly unhappy with the current situation that our legislature is growing and expanding.
As far as what local private schools are participating in the voucher program, I've not seen anything to date that would tell me which ones. We have seen some of the dollars, but I don't know which schools they are.
Okay, thank you. Our next question, we'll ask Mike to respond first. What topic or issue affecting our school district do you believe needs to be better communicated to our community?
Well, I'm going to go maybe back to the referendum just a little bit. when I look at all the different avenues that the school district uses and utilizes to communicate with the public, in some respects, it's everywhere. When I pick up my phone and I look at what's going on in social media, I see information being passed about the school. When I look at local media, I see information. There are a lot of direct sources of information directly from the school. If you're a parent, you get a lot of information about what goes on at the school. So I think the school is doing a really good job of getting their programs and their services and what they offer out to the public and out to parents. As Meg mentioned, with the new spending limits for school districts, one of the caveats is that if you go to referendum and you fail, well, you're kind of stuck for a while. And when we heard about that, it was such a double-edged sword. Here is this blessing. The state is finally going to provide schools more funding, but there's this real heavy-handed penalty that if you go to referendum and you fail, you're stuck for a while. And so we know in order to pass a referendum, we're going to really have to communicate the reasons behind it, how the money is going to be used, the history of it out to the community, because we got to get the community behind it, and to be honest, we cannot afford to have it fail.
So as I mentioned earlier, we have commissioned a facility study, which is going to be the backbone of what we will bring forward to propose to the community. Our superintendent has just finished, I believe, his 17th presentation with respect to what that facilities program looks like to our local staff. Because the bottom line is, if our staff doesn't understand and support what it is that we are saying that we need, then we have to go back to the drawing board. So we've started internally. We have started with the people who are closest to our buildings, who are closest to our academic settings, who have the best understanding, knowledge about what our district needs. The superintendent's gathering all of that information. He is then going to provide a presentation to the board. The board has not taken a look at this yet in the broad spectrum. He's also going to be working with a couple select task force within our community, and we're also planning on public forums in the community to provide that same information that's been changed based on input from staff, that's been changed based on input from the task force. And then we're going to provide that information to the community, because ultimately that's the most important thing that we need to do over this next number of months. It's educate the community about what the needs are in our district, what it's going to cost, and also fundamentally what that means for the taxpayers in our district, bottom line on their tax bills. And we just gave everyone a gift this past year. Our levy dropped 65 cents in this community. We are relatively debt-free as a district. We have been incredibly fiscally conservative, but ultimately we've got to convince the community that what we're asking for is not about wants, it's about needs, and we have to make sure everybody understands exactly what that means for their own pocketbooks.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Meg. Thank you to the candidates for the time and energy they have invested in running for school board and for participating in this forum. We hope you can stay to talk with the constituents just outside this room, so we may reset for the next forum. The League would like to thank the Stevens Point Journal and Portage County Gazette for publishing the candidates' responses to the League-sponsored questions. These questions are also available on our league website. A special thanks to the Voter Services Committee and all volunteer members who made this evening possible. We also thank Sarah Thoreau for videotaping tonight's event. Thank you to staff at the Portage County Public Library for their assistance and allowing the use of this facility. And thank you to all of you for your attendance and attention. Please watch to see when this forum will be broadcast, which actually we have those. They were read at the beginning. This forum will be broadcast Friday, March 23rd at 8 p.m., Saturday, March 24th at 1:30 and 9 p.m., and Monday, March 26th at 5:30 p.m. The forum will also be posted to the City of Stevens Point YouTube channel to watch anytime. Please remember to vote on April 3rd. Thank you.